According to Rolling Stone magazine in an article released on November 26, 2021, on April 28, 2021, Miguel Lamboya walked into a Salida police department and told authorities that they could find an enshrined, mummified corpse, formerly Amy Carlson, in his house in Crestone, Colorado. Officers documented Lamboya's full report in an affidavit, in which his association with the group is downplayed, describing the followers living in his house on and off for years as people who temporarily needed a place to stay. He apparently had no knowledge of Amy's death or how her corpse, she had died in California, ended up in his Colorado home. The article goes on to state that when the county police arrived at Lamboya's house in Crestone, they found Carlson immediately. They could see the twinkling, multicolored makeshift shrine from down the hallway. The scent of sage hung in the air, according to an officer on the scene. The room was decorated much like a child's bedroom, with rainbows and hearts and stars. A few stuffed bunny toys perched atop the mantle above Carlson's body, as if keeping vigil. She sat atop the bed, wrapped in what appeared to be a sleeping bag and decorated with Christmas lights. Her body was in the advanced state of decomposition. Her eyes had deteriorated to the point that they appeared to be missing entirely, and the area around the empty sockets had been dusted with glitter makeup. Her lips had receded, causing her teeth to protrude from her mouth. The article continues to say 7 of Amy's followers were present, along with 2 sleeping children, including Lamboya's 2-year-old son. 7 of Amy's followers were arrested and charged with abuse of a corpse and child abuse. All the charges would later be dropped. Welcome.
How many people in the house right now?
Mother is in rest. Okay, she has rested.
Before we get into the video today, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Gnostic TV. Gnostic TV is ancient wisdom reimagined. This is a Netflix for those who are spiritually curious and want a place to go where there is no censorship. I personally am doing a whole series on Gnostic TV called The Esoteric Explorer, where I am providing exclusive content to Gnostic. Gnostic TV is a host to all sorts of different content creators, many of whom are your old favorites. If you would like to check out Gnostic TV, there is a link down in the description box below. All right, here we go.
Recording in progress.
I'm going to leave that in, Steve. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, my name is Bryce, and I'm joined here with my friend Steve. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great, Bryce. Except for my YouTube history. Now it's covered by thumbnails of a lady that's blue and a body. That makes it awkward.
I know, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about this. But before we get into that, some housekeeping, guys. So Steve, we've been talking about this a lot. Steve has a channel that's just waiting to be uploaded. So go ahead and make sure that I'm going to put Steve's links down in the description box below for Mystical Dynamics, his YouTube channel that he is about to launch. And just briefly, Steve, this is going to be such a cool channel because you're this alpha dude male, like America born and bred, you know, God, guns, and Trump, right? And
yep.
and now you're going to be having this great YouTube channel where you're going to talk about the mystical side of life, the spiritual side of life. As a straight heterosexual male, you're going to do tarot card stuff, all sorts of fun stuff. Is there anything else you want to touch on for people watching?
Well, I'm also an engineer, so I'm going to be approaching all of that through the lens of an engineer. You know, the reason why it's called Mystical Dynamics is because I took classes, thermodynamics, fluid dynamics. So there's all of this stuff, and particularly when you talk about thermodynamics and heat, which is energy transfer, that's really where, oh, hey, I'm hearing some of the same stuff over here. So that was kind of the origin point for not only the channel name, but also for the way that I wanted to approach it.
That is awesome. And actually, Steve, I'm not going to say it on while we're filming, because we know that when anybody tends to bring something up, those websites tend to disappear. So when we're done, I'm going to give you something that I learned the other day that might be interesting to you, that kind of connects the two together and where they tried to separate them, if that makes sense. So yeah, so something fun. So for you guys, like, so if you're really science minded, if you're very logical or very, masculine, the masculine energy. So you could be a female too and carry a lot of masculine energy. It's just this, masculine energy is more the logical, where the feminine is more the intuitive, and it's the merging of both energies within the body. And so I think that's great, Steve, that you're going to do that. You're going to make it more comfortable, I think, for men to be able to get in touch with the softer side of life, so.
Well, it's a neat concept.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's downplayed and tossed to the side as just heebie-jeebie bullcrap. And it's just, is it though?
I know, right? Well, okay, so remind me when we're done filming for me to send you that information so you can look into it when they went and tried to disrupt that. So we didn't know who we are as spiritual beings having a human experience. But you guys, we're going to talk about, I feel like I should start a new playlist called Cult Watch.
Make a stinger for it. Use the current affair. Cult Watch.
And this is a cult that I covered about a year ago, called the Love is One Cult. I will link my video down in the description box below, where I go through all the facts, the who, what, why, when, where, whatever, how, of what this cult is. Now, HBO just covered this cult as well. And the fact that HBO is now covering it, I was like, ooh, Steve, unfortunately, our friend Doug, we were doing the Twin Flame cult with Doug, and I actually wanted Doug to get involved in this one as well, but unfortunately, he obviously passed away. So we're going to carry on the torch, because the interesting thing about the Love is One cult is that they believed a lot of what we believe. And that's why I turned this Truth or Cults Turn Deadly. That's why I titled this, because I think, Steve, a lot of us in the truther world, we're kind of seeing the writing on the wall that a lot of these truther groups are not truth. They're controlled opposition. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know if this particular cult was actually controlled opposition or if they just got delusional in their own thoughts. So I'm actually going to pass it off to you, because everybody's already heard my perspective on this cult. They've already heard what I had to say a year ago on this cult. So I'm going to pass this off to you, Steve, and let you kind of tell the audience about the cult, what you think about the cult, whatever, just freestyling it, whatever you want to tell our friends about this particular group.
Well, I don't know. I agree. I don't know if they would be controlled opposition, but you're dealing with a group of individuals who, I'm drawing a blank on a gentleman's name, but he said, never let a tragedy go to waste. So I can see that maybe this isn't actually something that was cooked up, but something that maybe was used to discredit people who kind of lean towards this type of belief system. Now, just for a little bit of background, just to recap everything, we're talking about Amy Carlson, born in 1975. Parents divorced in roughly 1982. It's basically typical America in the 80s, middle class. According to her mom, they grew up dirt poor, but looked to be somewhat living a somewhat of a normal lifestyle for the 80s. Dad remarries, and this is where the plot thickens like a good stew. The stepmom didn't like the mom and took it out on Amy. And my take on this, and I watched the HBO, the way it's presented there, it seems like this all has its roots in massive amounts of trauma. And when you look at Amy, she gravitated towards guys that were controlling, kind of like the stepmom. And I think it was even her sister that said if she got into or started dating a quote nice guy, that relationship didn't last long. So she only stuck to these controlling individuals. And Amy herself, attractive young lady, talented. She got good grades in school, this, that, and the other. When you watch her videos, and this is what's interesting with the clips, the early on videos, very articulate, almost a seductive tone of voice. And this is where the key, I think, is where all this starts, because you get it to where you have this attractive young lady who starts talking about all of this stuff. And you're like, oh, hey, this is all the stuff that I believe in. And now I think around this time, when she starts doing her YouTube videos, this is when she hooks up with First Father God. There were 5 in total. She was in her 30s, leaves her kids, ups and leaves her family. And between the two of them, they kind of start getting this message out, saying, oh, we're Mother, Father, God, this, that, and the other. And it's absolutely fascinating how it almost spirals out of control from there. Because you meet the Archangel Michael guy, who becomes the financier, the guy that runs the website. She then goes to another Father God, and he's Father God for a few days, goes to a fourth Father God. This guy, I think he said he becomes a ring bearer. I won't say the word for on YouTube for what he becomes, but all right, he becomes Father of the universe. Then you get to Jason, the last Father God, who, and I had to laugh in the HBO video. They introduced this guy getting out of the shower with a tether. I went, oh, this is good. This is gonna be great. Here we go.
I have to go back to the very first Father God that she hooked up with, the older guy. I actually really liked him.
Yeah.
I could hang out with him, and we laughed so hard because she made a mistake, and this is a mistake that a lot of people new to the spiritual community tend to make. She did like a psychedelic drug trip, and in this drug trip,
that's right.
Funny, one of my colleagues in the yoga world, we were talking about this, and we were talking about how she did this psychedelic trip, and all of a sudden she thought she was God, and my colleague was like, "Bitch, me too." Like we all think that was.
Well, and that was it. That was. And thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to note that because I couldn't find the date of when she tried the drug. The drug was ecstasy, and she, wow, experienced ecstasy. Who the frig would have saw that coming?
Like, you need to do it a few times to realize everybody thinks they're God.
Yeah.
And I just laughed so hard. My colleague, we're standing in the yoga shala talking about it, and she was like, "Bitch, me too." Like we all think that when we go through, when we start experimenting with this kind of stuff. And so she has this awakening, we can say, and that's why I always say that it's super important that you have a teacher, that you have a mentor, because all of a sudden when an awakening starts, you're battling the ego. The ego all of a sudden starts to get real big because now it's challenged. And so the ego does a really good job of looking spiritual in order for you to hold on to it. And I have to laugh because when she left the first Father God, he said something along the lines of, "Well, I think we're all gods." Amy just thought she was a little more God than anybody. Amy just thought she was a little bit more God than anybody else. And I just
And I was watching another YouTuber, and they were talking about the first Father God and how it almost cast him in a negative light. The thing is that Amy was in her 30s. She wasn't this impressionable young woman. She was a full-on adult, an adult with trauma, but a full functioning adult. She was a manager of McDonald's, that sort of thing. And this guy he just seemed like just a weeded out hippie. He was a burnt out hippie.
Yeah, he's still hippie. That's all it was. He harmless. He, totally pure intentions from him. It's funny you say that, Steve, because in some of the cases I'm working on now, I keep going back to childhood trauma. And yes, it does affect us. But at what point do we have to take accountability? You know, and that's what I'm glad you're bringing that up. When you're 22 and coming out of childhood trauma, there's a little bit more of a forgiveness because you're still young. Your brain hasn't developed yet. But when you get into your 30s, in your 40s, you start to get older, you have to start to take accountability for your own behavior. And this is why I don't think, and from what I know about Amy Carlson, I don't think she actually had a teacher to point this out to her. She never did a yoga practice. She never went and had actual training where she was going to be challenged by a mentor or a teacher in order for her to see her own blind spots or to be aware that they exist, so that she wouldn't all of a sudden become, her ego wouldn't blow up to the point where she was actually abusing people. And anyway, so take it away, Steve. I just thought when we talked about the first hippie dude, I was like, I love that guy, like missing teeth, just living out in Colorado, communing with nature, thinking we're all gods, but and also one thing before you talked about her being the manager of McDonald's, and they spoke about that, like Amy was obviously very intelligent. And she knew how to work the corporate ladder. Like she was she was getting very successful with McDonald's and starting to make a life for herself, working the corporate ladder. And I can't remember in what part of the docuseries they talked about this, but it's almost like the skills she learned at that job also helped her build her cult later, if that makes sense.
Well, and the thing is that there are some people I think are a natural leader because they're able to sit there and they're able to point out where people's strengths and weaknesses are, and able to provide encouragement, be able to provide that positive feedback and say, hey, you know, you're lacking here, so we're going to work on that, but you're really good here. So they maintain that balance, right? Amy, from the sounds of it, was someone that was able to do that. And I think even the docuseries, they said how everyone that worked underneath her loved her. I mean, we've all had bosses that we hate.
Yeah.
No comment on mine. However, allegedly. Now, and that I think was something that she was just naturally that way. She loved having the spotlight on her. So what better way to do that than to be the boss?
Yeah.
You know, a no-brainer. And then
to become the boss of the spiritual world.
Yeah. You know, and then you just have it to where she starts going down this rabbit hole of stuff where it's like, yeah, okay. Oh, so your right-hand man in the spiritual realm is Robin Williams, Saint Germain, okay, and Michael Jackson, and all of these celebrities are your main team. Now, I've heard of people talking to John Lennon. However, do you have some of the heavy hitters, you know, Mary Magdalene, Joshua, or Jesus, wherever you want to call them, you know, have some of those people there on standby, not
celebrities.
Bork.
Let's see what were some of her, because this is again the most important part of this story, I think, for us and in our belief system and our friends watching, is this is a cautionary tale. Yeah. And as I said, you know, I think I said before we started filming, you know, there are Telegram groups that are claiming the same thing that Amy Carlson claimed. Amy Carlson claimed she was the incarnation of Cleopatra. She claimed she was Joan of Arc. So many people, and we said off camera, I was like, it doesn't fucking matter who you were in a past life. That's just a manipulation. What matters is this life. It's this life. And anyway, so Steve, let's kind of tell our audience who don't, what were some of Amy Carlson's beliefs? Like when we talk about her being similar to us, what were her beliefs?
Well, it was, you know, the air quotes typical, we're all in a matrix, you know, there's a cabal overseeing everything, that, you know, there's more to spirituality than just what you see in religion. There is, you know, there's a lot of that stuff. You know, I think, you know, Trump was an uncle or something. He was on the pegboard. It was like a past father in a past life, that sort of thing. Trump's going to bring in, basically, he's the white hats, That's what she was saying, I think, back before it was cool. And now it's the big thing that's on, you know, that's on the Telegram and all of that stuff, right? You know, the white hats are coming, you know, the aliens, there's a galactic federation, which I'm sorry, I always find that a little bit cringe. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm sorry to anyone that thinks that. To me, it strikes me as a little bit cringe. But you have it where that is the belief system and the thing that was really being pushed in these videos. And what's fascinating is that you have an instance here of someone who's been traumatized, drawing in people who have also been traumatized. I think the third father god was an individual who was addicted to painkillers. And he was starting to get clean, starting to go down the spiritual path, stumbles across this stuff. Next thing you know, he's, we'll say, chosen as the fourth father god immediately, and is brought to the bedroom chamber, if you get my drift. Now, that is how I'm seeing this cult. So it's just like you have someone at the top that's traumatized, pulling in people who are also traumatized. That's what seems to be a big thing too. That's in these truther communities, right? You have people who life has handed them an interesting hand, we'll say. Maybe not a bad hand, but it's an interesting one that you probably wouldn't have chosen if you were in the 3D. Or you're a smart ass like me and you had a dare from your guardian angels, you're coming up with your soul plan. Anyways, someone owes me $5 on the other side. I'm just saying. Now, you have, again, people who have these traumas pulling in these other people with trauma. And then you start getting into and this is the most fascinating thing with cults, right? We talked about this in the Twin Flame the twin flame universe, I think they're called. It was so bad I blocked it out of my head. Now, you have it to where these individuals start investing time. And even if they get an aha moment, they'll sit there and go, well, I've invested, and I can't remember what it's called, but they'll say, I've invested X amount of money, X amount of time into this, I can't turn back now. And I think that's where the cycle starts. And to be truthfully honest, I think there was, because we can talk about the St. Michael guy. He is honestly fascinating. Because you talk to some people and like he was the one pulling the strings. He's the one that did everything. Here's the thing. This dude walked away with somewhere between $300 and $330,000. Okay. That is not a massive windfall. If dude was that diabolical looking for a quick get rich scheme, this is the wrong one.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that thinks, go ahead, Bryce.
No, I love that you brought that up because he definitely, and he's the one that basically, and we'll get to this, he's the one that basically turned this cult into a national headline by rightly so went to the police because they had a freaking dead body with them. But, you're also looking at this wishful thinking too, which is a big thing. And when I say wishful thinking, like, I don't want the audience to misunderstand what I'm saying. It's important to have dreams. It's important to daydream. It's important to have goals. But wishful thinking is not that. And I think sometimes when people have gone through a lot of trauma, including Amy Carlson, you're right, it's the like attracting the like. They're looking for a reason as to why they've suffered. And even if it's subconscious seeking, why did I have to be raped? Why did I have to go through X, Y, and Z? Why me? Why me? Why me? And so when you meet somebody who's also gone through that and tells you these things you want to hear and makes you feel like you are special, and it makes all that it numbs that past pain. Where in a real spiritual community, the teacher, the mentor should be having you lean into that past pain and accept that sometimes things just happen. And sometimes it is what it is. And there's a karmic, and your responsibility is to work through that, not to ignore it, not to try to justify it. And, they talk a lot about ascension, ascending, and which is a real thing. So two things get to be true, right? Like there are things that they believed that we know are true. Now, I'm not a big fan of the whole white hat theory, because to me, that's just two sides of the same coin. That's just another side of the black hats. Anytime you're giving your power over to another human being, which is what they did with Amy, or giving your power over to government system or whatever, that's you giving your power away. It doesn't matter who you're giving your power to. And in order to get yourself out of the matrix, you have to actually basically say, screw both sides and take your own autonomy back. And that's why I try to say that softly, like, you are the white hat. You're actually the white hat, And so, but with that being said, we know that things they said, I don't like the Galactic Federation thing either. Steve, I kind of laughed when you said that, because I was like, same bro, same. They understood that our existence here on Earth is a little bit more complex than we've been taught. They understood that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but they misplace the intelligence that comes behind understanding that. They misplaced it. They put it all onto Amy. And so Amy started saying that she was literally God, right? Like, she, not a fractal of God, but she was it. She was God, right?
She was reincarnated 534 times before this one, and has been trying to save humans for 19 billion years. Y'all, at some point, I'd go, screw this, I'm out.
I know,
you do
right?
you, boo. I'm out. And honestly, this entire thing is fascinating. And it's very difficult to process this because you're not in that state of mind. I can understand it. If me from, we'll say, 5-10 years ago would have stumbled onto this, I would have been tempted, I think, because that's where I was in my life. But the biggest thing here is that, like we talked about in the first video I was in with you, Bryce, regarding the twin flames universe. We're all a fractal of God. If you need a reminder of that, just remind yourself what namaste means.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not something that's trendy. There's a meaning behind it. Just like when you go and you bow to someone, when you say that, that's not like, oh, this is cool. No, there's a really deep meaning behind it. Very simple movement, deep meaning. Mm-hmm. And another thing is, my dad, being the sage that he was, would often say, life's a bitch, then you die. That's your time on earth. It all depends on the hands that you're dealt and how you play it.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing, is being able to play it and understand and acknowledge that, you know what? My life path right now, it's kind of bad. Like, this is bad, right? And saying, all right, I need to pull myself out of this gutter. Not mommy and daddy, not some YouTuber, not me, not Bryce. This is you.
Yeah, it's all
you have to sit there and go, this is bad. I know, because I've done it. I've sat there and went, okay, something's wrong in my thinking meat. I need to talk to someone. And then they looked at me and they go, yeah, this is bad.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to fix you. But again, it wasn't this one individual is the end all be all. No, this individual is a guide.
Yeah, that's it.
And you go down these rabbit holes and then you come back up for air and go, hey, is this cool? Okay, cool. I want to go back down and dig deeper. Or no, stay out of that one. Go into this one.
Yeah.
That's what your guides and your teachers are.
Well, and that's the thing. A teacher's job is basically to teach themselves out of a job, right? A cult leader's job needs to always be needed because they're getting their sense of self from their followers, where a teacher's never going to get. I don't get my sense of self from my followers. No offense to my followers. As a teacher, I don't get my sense of self from my students, I should say. And no offense to my students, you don't want a teacher that's getting their sense of self from you. My job is to give you the information that I've been given to help you, give you what I got from my teacher, and then send you on your way. That's one thing I love about Tamara, because Tamara, she said before that she'll do these like courses, these workshop weekends, and then once it's over, people will call her and ask her questions, and she'll be like, I don't know, what do you think? Like, I'm not your coach.
Tamara cracks me up because anytime the way that she presents herself, she comes across as the cranky neighbor. I love her to pieces, and I mean that with all respect possible. She's literally, she will give you her undivided attention when you're in for a session. Outside of that, it's, what do you want? It's the funniest thing.
You got to do you. You got yeah. She's just there to give you the information. You've got to do it. She can't hold your hand. And that's but again, Amy, that's what's dangerous though. And I will say and I'll go ahead and say who they are because this is true. There's nothing untrue about this. The Telegram cult, Enough is Enough, that I've had run-ins with, and I've had to go to the police, and they have the woman who's claiming to be the great niece of Nikola Tesla. She's not, but she's claiming that. And I have all the voice message. She claims she's God on earth. She claims she's God representative on earth. She says, makes this whole great awakening about her. It's about her. She's the one saving everyone. She's the one controlling consciousness. This is exactly what Amy Carlson was saying.
Yeah.
This is not, and if we look at the law of one, something I like to point out a lot is that in a negative base polarity, there's a pecking order. There's elitism. There are leaders and followers. But in a positive base polarity, it's a social memory complex, meaning everyone is important. Everyone has a job to do, and that's the difference between a teacher and a cult leader. A teacher understands that their position as a teacher is because they have more experience. My position as a teacher at a yoga shala is because I've been doing this for 18 years. I've been through the ringer with my teacher. I've broken bones, gotten bruised, learned a whole dead language. And now my job is to give you that to meet you where you are as a student, whether you're a beginner student or an advanced student, to meet you where you are, to challenge you, and then walk away when the class is over and let you integrate that and go live your life with that information and your interpretation of that information. Your interpretation of that information that I give you is actually none of my business as a teacher. And that's, one thing that Amy Carlson was doing too is she was constricting their food, which is a big thing for cults, right? But here's the thing: like, we know when the ascension happens, we won't require as much food as we do in these heavier bodies because this is a heavy density. We do know that people eat way too much. Like, we know that as Americans that our diets are way too much. But I would never, Steve, as a teacher, ever tell my students what to eat. When they
You
ask
tell me to give up Taco Bell, I'm leaving.
when they ask for my opinion, I always say, well, I'm a vegetarian. That's kind of what, but you do you, I believe in vegetarianism, but you do you. Or I'll say, check out the dosha system, or I'll send them to an Ayurvedic doctor to look at their doshas to help them plan. I don't want that responsibility. I'm not a nutritionist. I can give you my experience, but I'm not going to put you on a diet. I'm not going to ask you what you had to eat last night. I'm not going to do that, right? You're a fucking adult. Listen, my students are all adults. They don't need someone parenting them. So, I mean, what do you think about that when people, because all those people looked anorexic, didn't they?
Well, they look anorexic. They had 1,000-mile stare in each one of them. It was insane. And something came to mind when I was looking into this. So they restrict sleep, okay, 2 to 4 hours.
Yep.
You literally start going batty.
Yep.
And this is something that's fascinating to where I wonder if this was used as a hook. Because one thing that happens when you start getting lack of sleep, ask me how I know, night terrors.
Oh, yeah.
And you start seeing people. I saw the man in the hood. I saw the old lady. Haven't seen the man in the hat. Don't want to. I don't need that trifecta. I saw 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that was part of the hook as well, in that you needed Mother God and her protection to keep you away from these demons that were affecting you if you had night terrors. So I wonder if that was, because none of that was mentioned. This is my pure speculation, but I wonder if that was used into it. What was that?
And that's a really good perspective, because night terrors are also caused by trauma too. Like that can also, because you don't get enough sleep when you're stressed. Yeah. So like I started first having night terrors when I was 14 years old. And the fact that my parents didn't do anything, like didn't send me to a psychiatrist, but it was the 90s, right? Like therapy wasn't popular then, but I was being heavily abused. So that is a side effect. So if you're not dealing with the abuse, you're going to, and also, when you're under like PTSD, or I'm sure a lot of these people have CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a stress disorder and anxiety disorder that happens after childhood abuse. I've been diagnosed with it. It can cause you to not, like, I have to be able, like when we did the shadow work challenges, some of the things I put in there were things that I benefited from, because like turning the electronics off an hour before bed, right? Because your mind, when you're in that state of trauma that has not been dealt with, your mind is going 90 miles. You get so used to the rapid response of your mind that it becomes normal. Mm-hmm. So you have bring up a really great point, Steve. You have these people that have gone through intense trauma, seeking this, leaving their lives behind and moving to the middle of nowhere, Colorado, to live with strangers.
Yeah.
And then they're on top of that, they're being deprived of even more sleep, deprived of food. So it's probably kicking up even more of that subtle trauma. Yep. And now Mother God can fix it for you. Amy Carlson can fix it for you. And every time you fall off, every time you have more trauma, it must be something wrong with you. So you better submit more to Mother God.
Yeah. And, because stress is like a 4-tier process. You have stress, duress, traumatic stress, and then post-traumatic stress. When we talk about handling stress, you have to bring yourself down. You have to get out of that duress and into stress, and then eventually into where everything's relaxed. So if you're in a constant state of, and again, this is because when you think of PTSD, what do you think? You think of
military
unwanted assault.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Military stepping on a landmine. No one ever talks about the constant going up, 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 and never coming down.
Yep.
And that is where you can that's another source of PTSD. No one talks about that because you don't think about that. You're like, well, this is life.
This is normal.
And so,
you bring up such a good point. And I've talked about, because when I was diagnosed with CPTSD in my early 30s, I didn't even know what that was. And when it was explained to me, it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder, I remember saying, but I've never been to war. And the therapist being like, no, it's complex because you endured in your childhood abuse on top of abuse on top of abuse on top of abuse, and nobody ever stepped in and stopped it or got you help. And so you as an adult are functioning from that place of constantly being stimulated, constantly be on the lookout, constantly walking on eggshells. And all of a sudden, and I was just so used to it, it didn't even, but when I did my first EMDR therapy, so what if we look at the biomechanics of the brain, when we go back to sleep, when we go into REM sleep, which is the deepest level, there's that saying when someone has a hard decision to make, they'll go sleep on it. There's a scientific reason behind that. So when you go into REM sleep, you have rapid eye movement. Your pupils are start to go, you can't see it because your eyes are closed. They go back and forth, back and forth. And what they're doing is they're calming down the nerves that connect to the brain. So when you wake up in the morning, you feel calmer, you feel more clear about the decision you have to make. But if you're in CPTSD or in duress, you never get to REM sleep. Your nervous system, because your nervous system, your adrenaline is pumping. It's like you're in a war and you're being attacked. Somebody explained CPTSD is like being in a major car accident every day of your life. And so you're constantly in this state, like I'm a light sleeper still, you're constantly, and so what EMDR therapy is they work your eyes in your awake state to relax the brain in an awake state. And after my first EMDR session, I remember I was driving back in Atlanta traffic and I was calm for the first time I'd ever been. And I remember sitting there thinking, is this how normal people feel? Because this is not something I'm used to. I didn't realize that people could be this relaxed.
And it's on top of that, I found I was addicted to stress because that's all I knew.
Yeah, same.
And so it's you get that constant adrenaline rush, and when you try to calm down, you don't know what to do, nor do you know how. I mean, this is where, and I started reading it. I got to sit down and actually read it, but the body keeps the score, right? Yeah. That's part of it. And another thing too is that when you're under constant stress, you don't go through the logic part of your brain. You may be a human being with thumbs and operate a computer. Lizard brain kicks in from way back here.
Yeah.
And it takes time for it to go from here to the frontal lobe, and then you can start, looking at things logically. You screw that up or you don't have that at all, that's where bad things happen.
Right.
And so that's where I think a lot of all of this stuff is coming from, because you're, these individuals, sleep deprived, food deprived, as you put, told who to boink, can't pee while standing up. I got thoughts on that. I got theories as to why that is. Kentucky windage is all I got to say. Learn to use it. But you got all of this stuff that's happening with these individuals who are just in this constant state of stress. They are in that perpetual fight or flight. I'm sure their adrenal glands were shot if they're not still, and they're operating from back here. I mean, even going back to the twin flame universe, it's all back here. But once you are able to bring it to the front, when you, like with some of the people that left that cult that we were talking in those 2 episodes, they're able to go, wait a minute, they don't actually have power over me because they're no longer back here. They're here. Right.
Well, and it's, and that, as you're saying this, Steve, I'm wondering, like, is this the catch? Because if somebody has not experienced traumatic, for the lucky people in the world who've never been in trauma, or people who've been in trauma and have gone through their healing, they're not going to probably fall for this because they can see it for what it is. Whereas in your constant state of stress, it's going to feel familiar. It's going to feel comfortable. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And yeah, it's, what's interesting though, I keep thinking about Hope, the girl Hope. One of the girls that was being interviewed, young girl. And
I think she refused to use her real name in the Rolling Stones article, if I remember correctly.
And I can't remember her, but to me, she seemed so pissed off through the whole HBO documentary. And I kept thinking, good. She seemed very bitter and pissed off and anger. And a lot of these spiritual communities, things like anger are a no-no. Things like, anything that challenges, and as Magdalene says in her gospel, wisdom of the wrathful person, anger is necessary in spirituality. It's necessary. Now, to act out on anger, that's a different thing altogether, but anger is what sparks change. And so when I saw her in that state of anger, I thought, okay, she's going to eventually snap out of this, because you could see that kind of bubbling up in her. And unlike the twin flame cult, should we go? I know we kind of stopped halfway. Should we kind of explain what happened to Amy Carlson and like why this got it? I don't know if you haven't seen my expose or HBO's series, like what happened to Amy Carlson after she was on like Dr. Phil and all that stuff.
So I just have to thank you I mentioned this during during the pre-show talk, but I have to thank you for my YouTube now, because all I see are pictures of this of a body because Amazon shows it. So if you watch the HBO, don't let your kids see it because they open it with the body cam footage of them going into the Colorado. I can't remember their home base. I think is what they refer to it. And they show Amy after 12 days being dead, wrapped in the blanket, wrapped in the Christmas lights. And it's like, nah, they wouldn't show that. They're not going to show that. Son of a biscuit. They're showing it. So I want to say it was like around 2018, they start going less, they start pushing more like product, in order to raise funds. And they get into this big thing of colloidal silver. Now, that's where you have bits of silver suspended in metal. Suspended in liquid. And they show clips of them making this. It looked like a freaking meth lab. And it wasn't like they private labeled this stuff. They made it out of this little home in Colorado. And so Amy started consuming a huge amount of it. And she was an alcoholic of alcoholics. Like blasted at noon. And they're giving her another drink. And they said, well, this is proof that she's Mother God because no one can handle that much booze. And it's like alcoholics can. And at that point, I think her liver was just screaming. And then as time went on, we get to 2020. And she's drinking like colloidal silver by the pint at this point. So like right around this point, then she goes to Hawaii. This was fun. Claiming, because that's where she's got to go to heal, because at that point, she can't walk. She has to be carried everywhere she goes.
Her body's shutting down from all the drug abuse and alcohol.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To quote Father God number 3, his $700 from his unemployment check went to give the weed. It basically paid for weed.
Yeah. I mean, she was doing everything. She was drinking nonstop. I'm sure there were harder drugs being used. Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, the fifth one was a former meth addict. Mm-hmm. The fifth Father God. He said he was clean. He was clean from meth for I think like 12 days when he came across the video, and then he's like, I gotta go there, and here he is showing up. So who knows where that came, and they even attributed her downfall to him. So who knows what was going on there? But anyways, gets tossed out of Hawaii, like you mentioned in your video. Like they go.
She said she crossed the line. She didn't. They got their pitchforks and torches, and they went for a stroll right to this hotel that they were staying in. And the mayor's like, y'all, you got to go. I can't. This didn't go in well for you.
I can only tell you to leave. You've done pissed them off. And like they were throwing rocks at the cars as they were driving by. I mean, it was people of Hawaii, don't mess with them. Duly noted. And then you get to 2021. Gets this vision of, or this message from, I think it came from Robin, go to Oregon. And so they get her, and at this point, you can see her vertebrae in her spine. They show a picture of her from the back. She's dying. She's blue from the colloidal silver.
Now,
her body is shutting down.
So they manipulate her death too, because obvious from us watching it and seeing it, she's abusing her body. Her body's shutting down because it's so abused. She's been abusing it it just can't take it anymore. They blamed it on her shutting down because the bad guys were winning, and she couldn't handle. Yeah,
it was. So she referred to alcohol as her medicine. The drugs were her medicine.
I know alcoholics who refer to alcohol as their medicine too. That's
I know.
Typical of alcohol.
It's like, that's a checkbox for why you need AA. Anyways,
I think I had an uncle that said the same thing. He wasn't claiming to be no god.
No. I'm surprised Amy didn't have a glass that said it's wine 30 or something like that, But she's turning blue. They show her being wheeled into this hotel in a wheelchair. Like she is blue head to toe. And they're moving her from like the hot tub to the shower to the bed.
Loose use of her legs. Her body is really shutting down.
You're watching the death process take place.
She's only 45. She's not very young at this point.
And the thing is that you look at her in these older videos, she looks like she's in her 60s.
Yeah.
late 50s, early 60s. No, she was only 45. And it's like, dude, this is literally what drugs and rock and roll does to you. And she passes in the hotel. Her followers, including Father God, are waiting for the Federation to take her. The people that run the hotel, they're suspecting something is up. They try to get into the room. Her followers are freaking out because they have a dead body on their hands. So they smuggle her out. And they drive, I can't remember what forest. And
they go camping.
They literally, oh no, it gets, but prior, I can't remember if it was going to the forest or going back to Colorado. They weekend at Bernie's, this poor woman. They literally put sunglasses on, put her in a blanket, put her in the back, and they get pulled over by the cops. And that's the thing, is that you have these people who, on one hand, they're like, and they called her mom. So they're going, hey, mom is what's going to happen to mom? What's going to happen to the mom? I think they went out to the woods literally expecting a ship to come down, kind of like the Claw in the Toy Story, and pick her up.
Like E.T., like all of a sudden they were going to meet these. Yeah. Yeah. And
on the other hand, they're going, shit, we got a dead body.
This is a federal crime. Like what we're transporting a dead body. Yeah.
Again, going back, this is bad, right? And so they go from the woods, cross 5 state lines with Amy in back. And they go back to home base.
For our viewers who are from another country, it's not good to cross state lines with a dead body, is it?
It's a bad thing.
That's a federal prison.
Well, it's just a bad thing to transport a body to begin with. Like, go down a block, that's bad. Now go 5 states where you have 5 different laws on top of whatever is the federal law on that. That is horrible. Now, and they're going through, and this was fascinating to me. This is where the nerd in me really came out, right? Because they're sitting there and they're going, oh man, she had 3 hearts and I'm doing all these tests, man. This is the 5th Father God. Okay. Really 6,000 foot view. This is the dying process, all right? You can maintain somewhat of brain activity for up to 10 minutes, all right? But you have no pulse, you're not breathing, you have no reflexes, you have no reaction in the pupils, all right? This is why when people go in there, they check the pulse, they hit the light on the eyes, all right? So that's in the first few minutes of after death, right? Muscles relax, skin starts to sag, all bodily waste is out, and your body starts to cool down at a rate of at about a 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour. 2 to 6 hours, blood begins to settle, rigor mortis sets in, and it starts in the face. So this is why, one thing that I read, this is where kind of like the idea of putting coins on the eyes came from, was because the eyes almost start to open up because everything's tightening up.
Right.
7 to 12 hours. This is the max rigor mortis. And after 12 hours, the muscles relax. This can take up to 3 days. Now, for context, we're talking about from the time that she died in Oregon all the way to when the cops showed up was roughly 12 days. So this is the time window that we're dealing with. Skin shrinks, making it look like hair is growing. All right. So this is what happens when you leave the meat suit. They're claiming, and they're sitting there like, look at her hands. You can move them around. Yeah, because rigor mortis is passed.
Yeah.
You can still feel heat from her, probably because she's decomposing. That's what happens to things when decomposing. You ever walk past a mulch pile? They get hot.
Yeah.
My favorite, and this really blew my mind. They sit there with an EMF meter. Now, I had this meter at one point and kind of played with it because I wanted to see. I lived near some telephone and power lines, and I wanted to see how much EMF was getting into my house. And they're going up to her, and you can see this in the HBO documentary. They go up to her, and it starts going off the scale. It starts reading some sort of EMF. Then they pull it away. They go to the person who has the meter. I think it was 2 people. One person had a camera. The other one was messing with the meter, and it goes to 0. The only thing I can think of is that as they were getting closer, it was picking up the camera because it would start to spike. And I think that it was probably a phone camera. So which means that unless you have an airplane mode, your phone is constantly sending burst messages. So it's always going to cause spikes. but they're sitting there and they put her hand, the person with the EMF meter puts their hand in front of it and it stops it, but it moves away from the camera a little bit. So I'm wondering, they're saying that they're picking up EMF from Amy's body, but I think it was just the camera.
Probably.
But I'm sitting there watching this going, that's absolutely fascinating.
But that might be confirmation bias on their part, right? Like,
yeah.
Where that happens and you're like, oh, it's because she's a spiritual being. And here's my head thinking it could be a fourth density negative entity fucking with them.
Oh, yeah.
To make them worship this. Because they, and I mean, listen, I don't mean to sound rude or mean, because I do have a lot of empathy for her followers. I think they're very damaged people, and I'm a damaged person myself. I think we all are, and I just want to hug them and be like, there's another way.
Yeah.
But y'all, if you ever find me in a situation where I got a dead body in a room that's decorated like a 12-year-old little girl's bedroom with glitter on the dead body and I'm worshiping that thing, please send me to a psych ward. Please do me a favor.
And that was the major thing when I watched the documentary, because it, like I said, it opens with the body cam footage. This right here was a huge holy crap moment, because you look, they walk into this house and it looks like a child decorated. There's a rainbow and sun on the ceiling. There's all these different multicolored lights. I say this as a guy with lightsabers and lights behind me. I note the irony. However, this is more of a set. This was their living space.
It looks
and
like
then you go into
a little girl's bedroom.
Exactly. And then you go in there. And the thing is that there was one, her name was Erin. She had 3 kids, I think, and basically repeated what Amy did, abandoned them to go to this, and she walked into the bedroom. The bedroom was still there at the time of this documentary, and it literally looked like a 12-year-old, and it was a bunch of adults that made it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I'm looking at this going, this is all trauma.
And you know the thing is, Steve, I know you haven't seen the opening I've created, but for you guys watching, you saw the opening. I put the footage of them coming into the house. I cut it before they showed the body, because I don't want, again, yeah, it is quite, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, are they going to fucking show it? And they show her body. But yeah, and I have to say, like, God bless those cops.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure cops see wild shit all the time, but I don't know how I would have reacted in that situation being a police officer. Would I have started laughing uncomfortably? Would I have been too stunned to react? Like, God bless them for keeping their cool in that whole situation. And there were also 2 children on the property as well that were sleeping at the time can you imagine having a child around a decomposing dead body that you're worshiping, that you're literally worshiping as an idol?
Yeah.
With body glitter. I mean, they got body glitter on that her body. I mean, it is in a lot of ways desecrating. Now, I know that they weren't desecrating it. They loved her, but
by the letter of the law, it's desecration of a body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just it. It's just and I think with Mike, when they because the house was in his name. He was at the house.
And he was like, there's a dead body in my house.
Yeah. And they knock on the door, go, hey, fam. And they cart in a body. And he goes to the cops. And again, body cam footage. This was, it was April 20, I think I noted, it was like April 22nd. I'm sorry, it was April 28th when he went to the police. It was at 7 o'clock. The police go there at April 28th, like at 11:30 at night. It was like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. They brought the body in on the 27th. So dude had a chance. So he had the time to sit there and go, wait a minute, what? Sleep through the night, if he even slept, with a body in this house.
That's his property.
And goes, what the hell? And then had an entire day to process this. And you look at him, you can say he's manipulative and nefarious. Dude has the look of what in the actual hell is going on in my life.
He had, as we say in the South, he had a little come to Jesus moment.
I can't think of a bigger come to Jesus moment when you sit there, open up the door. Hey guys, what's that? And it's Mother God.
We're waiting for the galactic.
Waiting for the ascension. You know, and that was just, I mean, that was something where he's just going, what the hell? Because he started, I think, now in the documentary, it wasn't clear, but he starts draining the accounts.
Mhm.
I think when they were still in Oregon. So that's something that tells me that's going, okay, this guy started to either wake up or, because like I said, I don't think this was a get rich quick scheme.
No.
If it was a bad one when you only make out with a little over 300K.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this was someone that was a believer, started to wake up and go, shit.
And
This is,
he was like the secretary of the financial
Yeah.
person. His name was on everything. And
and he did the website.
Yep.
Like he was the tech guy.
yeah.
And I think even his background was in accounting or something. I think it was in programming as well, but he was the numbers guy. He was the nerd of the group, for
Yeah.
lack of a better phrase. And he started to see the writing on the wall going, shoot.
How do I backpedal out of this? Like, how do I get
Yeah.
myself disentangled with this group? Yeah.
And starts draining the cash. And then only to have the body of your beloved leader come waltzing in through the front door
With body glitter on.
with glitter on and Christmas lights, and you have to. That's at that moment. If I was this guy, I would sit there with a stiff drink outside, going, "How did I get here?"
What does my life come to?
Like, yeah, like this is a long way from, hey, you know what, this cute chick on the internet, she's saying some things that I agree with, to now that very same individual is just carted by me on a blanket. What the hell? This was a plot twist that no one was expecting.
Could you imagine what would have happened if he hadn't gone to the cops? Like, how far would this have gone?
There's a part of me that kind of wishes he didn't, because I'm just morbid curiosity. Because the evil hairless monkey mind wants to know, hey, what would you have done? Because these people were aware and smart enough to say, we have a body we have to
They
deal
knew
with.
they were breaking the law. They knew they
Yeah.
were breaking the law.
You know, in their mind, they thought that the cabal was going to take Amy.
But that's the that's kind of a great definition of cognitive dissonance, right? Where you see the truth and you have that logic side of you, but you're still going for the lie that you've invested. Yeah.
And it's just one of these things where it's just, as an outsider, it's absolutely fascinating, but you feel so bad for these people.
Oh yeah,
Because you have it.
for the cult members.
And at the end of it, they go through kind of like where they're at now. Two of them are continuing the legacy. Anklet guy, Jason, he's got his own channel, which some of the things that he's saying are very fascinating. He's now Father, Mother, God. Delusion much? Cocaine's a hell of a drug, I'm just saying. So is meth. So you have that going on. I think you have a couple. It was funny because they even had some of the interrogation footage, and there was one gentleman, they said, "You're a smart guy," and he goes, "I know." And one of the followers, I think, I can't remember if it was Uncle T or whatever, but he's just, you can tell that the reality is sinking in, and that whole, oh crap. Like it sounded like he was starting to wake up. My main concern were her kids, the ones that she abandoned. Now, one of them, he's off in Germany studying. I'm worried about her daughter because she had some correspondence with Amy, and she's in Colorado studying nursing. Colorado was where this was based out of. So I find that a little bit concerning. That's just me. Hopefully she stays clear of this. You know, and these kids, they were ticked. Go ahead.
Well, Crestone, Colorado, where the cult, kind of their homestead, there is a podcast, and I can't remember. It's based out of Georgia with Payne Lindsay. The first season was Tara Grimstad, and they actually found the killer through the podcast. It was wild. But they did a second case in Crestone with this woman that disappeared in Crestone at a drum circle, because very spiritual. That Crestone area is very like potent. And people were going back, and there was mention of the Love is One cult surrounding the disappearance of this girl. So this is a huge story. And yeah, Crestone, the daughter, now correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't a documentary where the little girl didn't even know who her mom was until her family had to sit down and say, hey, your mom is actually a cult leader.
Yeah. She started talking. They open up with, of course, of all things, this girl doing a TikTok. Me and my mom's a cult leader. And it's just, oh, how apropos, 2023, I'm talking about how my mom's a cult with TikTok. Why not?
And that her, and even when Amy started to, I thought this was bizarre too, because I don't think my family would do this. Like when Amy started to get sick and she was on Dr. Phil, it started to make all these national headlines. Her mother and sister never went up to Colorado to see her or to try to see.
And that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, because with going back all the way back to when Amy was a little girl, she went to pick her up from her dad's place and saw bruises on her leg. And Amy goes, I can't tell you, otherwise she'll kill me. So mom, she may have loved Amy, didn't look out for her. Because here's the thing. If I was picking up my little girl, she had bruises on her legs, and said, if I tell you, she'll kill me. Y'all, I'll go from normal to thermonuclear in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And mom didn't do that. And that was concerning.
When Amy was obviously dying, like the mother did not go to see, or the sister, that was weird to me, because I think my mother would absolutely come, would absolutely. And at the end, it did seem like that actually kind of bothered Amy, that her parents.
Yeah.
And all these young adults who are in the cult, their parents were constantly trying to get them out of the cult. They were constantly trying to do things to get their kids.
Yeah.
And Amy's mother and sister never. Well, granted, Amy's mother and sister were now responsible for raising Amy's kids, so they had to. I mean, maybe I'm looking at this from the wrong perspective. Maybe the mother and the sister were prioritizing Amy's children over Amy in that instance. I don't know, but
it may very well be.
I thought it was fascinating.
Well, the thing is that you also have it to where Amy started to wake up, and she's going, "This ain't real.
I don't.
This
think
is. I don't think this is right." And the thing is that now her followers were saying, "Oh no, that's just the cabal thing." Now the followers were forcing her to go back into this mindset,
into the delusion.
And again, absolutely fascinating documentary. Sad as all hell. Fascinating, because you see just how you can mess with the human mind.
Yeah, and that is and I know we're coming up at an hour now, and so I wanted to kind of conclude with this, Steve, like especially for those of us who are awake, what would be your words of advice? How important are stories like this for people who are on the path of awakening, in your opinion?
They're some of the most important stories you can have, because this tells you what not to do.
And can you see the writing on the wall with a lot of these Telegram groups and a lot of these YouTubers following the same footsteps as Amy Carlson?
Yeah. And the thing is that even some of these individuals that come out of these cults, if you pay careful attention, sometimes on these podcasts, it's almost like they're falling back into another cult.
Absolutely. That happens.
Which is terrible.
People go from one cult to the next because they don't take time to heal themselves.
Yeah.
My word of advice for anybody, regardless of what you believe, is if anybody tries to tell you that they are God, or that they are a prophet, or that they are a chosen one, run. That is a red flag. We're all fractals of God. Now, again, that's different with a teacher. First of all, a good teacher is not going to tell you that they have authority over you and that they're God. A good teacher is just going to be a fucking teacher. Like that's there's going to be, and like my boyfriend's really good about that with our students. Like any type of lionization that starts to happen, he shuts that shit down. He's like, I am a man, and this is a yoga school. You're my student. I'm the teacher. That's it. That is it. And so, and unfortunately, these types of manipulations can happen, not just in the truth world, they can happen in all types of spiritual worlds. They can happen in political worlds. So again, I would be very, 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 if somebody tells me that they are God, no one else is just them, as the original Father God said, I believe everyone's a God, but Amy just thought she was a little more God than everyone else. Or if anybody pretends like they have some connection to God that's stronger than you, or if somebody tells you they're a prophet, or any of these things, run, 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 run. In my opinion, anybody that's peddling stuff, saying that somebody else is going to come save you, run. Run. right? So you know,
To paraphrase Doug, if you think you are above falling into a cult, it means you're going to fall into a cult. And it's a state of constant vigilance. You need that situational awareness. It's not just for the parking lots. It's not just for when you go into restaurants or stores. It is for this stuff as well.
Yes.
And that's what you gotta learn. These tales, they're tragic, absolutely tragic, but they're also a cautionary one.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have unhealed trauma, I've had great experience with therapy. I know some people don't like therapists, but there are so many different forms and modalities where you're the one that has to you have to face it. You can't run from it. There's nothing anybody's going to say to you that's going to take away what happened to you. It sucks. It's just what happened, and you're going to have to face it. And I do find it hilarious when people think when they're so arrogant, they think they can never fall for this shit. And it's like, oh yeah. And
Yeah.
the whole 2020 fiasco that we went through, that's when their cult got strong, because all of a sudden people are questioning their reality, they're questioning their security, they're questioning, and so they fall into
Goes the hook.
Yep, where somebody has all the answers. Nobody has all the answers, my friends. None of us do, And it's and I will say too, like, censorship is big as well. I know with the Enough is Enough cult on Telegram, somebody just contacted me that there was a person on there because this person claiming to be Tesla's great niece is claiming to be the military secretary, press secretary, and then the person that runs Enough is Enough is the military director. Meanwhile, the person that runs the military runs Enough is Enough, and I'm not trying to sound mean, he's like 400 pounds. So how are you going to be directing the most powerful military in the whole world if you can't even run a fucking mile? Common sense, my friends. But that's that confirmation bias. The people in that cult want to feel special. They want to feel like they're part of this big story, and so they're going to ignore the common sense and ignore the reality. And so this person that was in the Telegram group actually asked the guy, give me proof that you're the military director. Like, show me proof. Blocked. He got blocked right there.
I mean, I know the military is dropping their requirements, but come on.
No, I mean, I would be. I'm like, I don't know anything about war, but I would be a better military director than this dude. At least I can run a mile, right? At least I'm fit. Military director, you're going to be able to have to, like, I watch Special Forces. I watch that show. I love that show. Like, they do some gnarly shit.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to be directing those people, you're going to need to be able to do that gnarly shit. And if you are 400 pounds and can't, like, when I was doing shows on that channel, he would fall asleep when I was doing my show. And you can't even stay awake for a fucking show because you're that out of shape, you're that unhealthy, then you're not the fucking military director. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound mean. That's just common sense. Common fucking sense. So, anyway, but it makes me sad because in this specific group, I know that people are getting conned out of money. Somebody else told me that somebody was in there and they were talking about this crypto stuff, and one of the guys was giving really bad advice to this what was perceived to be an older woman, and so this person intervened and said, no, you're going to get your money stolen this way. He got booted, and that's when I was like, oh, they're grifting like crazy. Like, they're running. They don't want people showing the truth. It's they have convinced people these med beds are coming, so they're ignoring their health. They're not paying their taxes, and so the government's coming and taking their land. And it's like, but people get to that point because they're so desperate. They get to that point because the world we live in right now is a fucking shit show. We all know that. And instead of actually sitting back and say, what can I do to improve my existence, in that I can't change the world around me, but I can change myself. I can take control of myself. But instead, I'm going to rely. And the internet, Steve, for me, it's like the wild, wild west for cults, because I think we said this with Doug. Like, we look at old cult leaders like L. Ron Hubbard, all these guys, the Heaven's Gate guy, Apple Bottom, whatever his name was, David Koresh. This was before the internet. So they had to, like, be on all the time. They had to be performing and charismatic all the time. But on the internet, people can create a facade and create this parasocial relationship where the person viewing the person or listening to the person projects who they want that person to be in their mind for them. And so there's this disconnect. So cults are growing even faster, right?
Well, it's not only that, though, but it's like I brought up with Doug. You go into the Church of Scientology, you take a test, you're there for 13 hours, but you leave.
Yes.
And you're out of there. Now you have this in the comfort of your own home, you have a 12-hour long playlist and they're adding new videos every day. It is a constant fire hose now at this point of this cultish material.
Yeah.
There is no time. You have no time to stop and go, maybe that is full of shit. It is just constant input that now you start to believe this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I've said it all. I mean, like, the thing is too, like, we're just under this assumption that, like, John F. K. Jr. is alive and Princess Diana is alive. And I said, when they're like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm not saying they're not, but we don't know if they are.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the proof? And why are we relying? And if they are alive, that's great for them. But what does that have to do with me and you? We're wishful thinking. We're wanting someone to step in and save us. You don't even know this fucking person. He doesn't know you. You know, you got to take care of you. And anytime somebody else, like with the whole Melania Trump being a Romanov and all that kind of stuff, which is part of the reason why I'm starting Monday, I'm going to be covering the Romanovs, because I felt bad for this lady. Someone messaged me and showed me like all these things in this particular Enough is Enough group. This Russian woman had actually gone in and done deep research to prove that Melania wasn't actually a Romanov. She got kicked out for showing facts. And I tried reaching out to her and I was like, do you want to come? But I haven't heard back. I asked if she wanted to come on my channel and present her information. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing, for the next few Mystery Mondays, we're going to be going through the Romanovs because this is important. So it goes back to that bigger idea of that junk conspiracy cul-de-sac. We're all over here going in circles debating whether Melania is a Romanov or JFK Jr. is alive. And meanwhile, over here, they're crashing our economy and about to wage war on us. But we're too busy over here getting fat because we're not taking care of ourselves because we think med beds are coming. I mean, how genius is that? And so this is really, really important. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, my teacher Ninda used to say, 1-time telling, 2-time telling, 3-time God telling. Like, at what point is God going to have to step in and be like, wake up? Well, the thing about the Telegram stuff too, Steve, what someone pointed out to me is a lot of the people that are falling for this stuff are older citizens who are retired. And they're getting to the latter part in life, and that's what's sad to me is like these people who are in their 70s and 80s. You know, if I got conned out of money, which I have been on YouTube, I'm young enough to go back and rebuild my bank account. 70 and 80-year-old people, if they lose everything because of this cult, that's it. Where's their second chance?
Yeah. And the thing is, they're easy to fall for all this because they lived through Operation Desert Storm, Vietnam, Korean War. You know, they've lived through all of these times to where the economy dropped, came back, dropped, came back. And they're terrified of living through that again. Again, is that feeding off trauma?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and they don't want that for their grandkids. So they're going to do what they can to save things for their grandkids.
They're all cutting their hair off and saving it for the med bed so they can be. And it's just like, you have no proof.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah. They were told by the Tesla person, a fake Tesla, that basically if they cut hair off and put it aside after they die, they can be brought back to life. I'm like, you're
not a worm.
Exactly. When your body dies, your soul goes, your soul leaves. It goes somewhere. It goes to the next adventure. So if you bring somebody's body back, another entity can come into that vessel, wake the fuck up. And for me, it's like, if you're trying to convince people that you're going to bring them from the dead, you are basically saying you know better than God. You are basically saying that God's plan for somebody's life is not good enough and you're going to take control. How narcissistic, megalomaniac, psychotic do you have to be to try to intervene in somebody else's soul plan with God?
Good rule of thumb, folks. Necromancy, not a good thing.
No
matter what. Tesla, med bed, whatever. Oh, that's necromancy. That's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
No. And I think, too, these people are older, so they're getting towards that time of thinking about passing away. And when we talk about things like med beds or rising from the dead, we instill that fear of death. Death is not the end. It's just a transition. And when we understand that from a spiritual perspective, I don't want to die yet. I think it's fun here on planet Earth sometimes. Sometimes it kind of sucks. You know, the French fries are really good. I keep laughing about the Yahoo review. Like, when I leave, like, what's my Yahoo review of planet Earth going to be? French fries were great. Some really great hiking trails. Otherwise, wouldn't recommend.
The fries were good. The burgers were a little overdone. 2 out of 5.
Yeah. Venus is better. I would go.
Waiting staff sucked. You know?
Exactly. So I keep thinking, but like I don't want to die for right now. But if I were to, and I knew Doug actually said that one of his last videos. I found it and I was like, wow. He said, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of death, even though I don't want to go. There's still life I want to live. I'm still young, but I'm not afraid of that. That doesn't scare me because I know I've worked on myself enough to know that my sense of self as Bryce is only an illusion. And that there'll be another life waiting. There'll be another plan. And so when you get people stuck in this idea of being risen from the dead or loved ones coming back from the dead or med beds, you're instilling that fear. You're feeding into the ego, the false sense of self. And I just really hope people watching this, especially if you find yourself in these weird groups, again, red flag. If somebody says they're reincarnated God or they are God's representative or they have some dominion over your soul, run.
Mm-hmm.
You know who else said they had dominion over people's souls? Warren Jeffs. You know who else said that? David Koresh. You know what else? Who else said that? That bottom guy who they all committed suicide to catch the comet.
Yeah, lots of bad people.
Lots of bad people said that. So,
and the thing is that if you're no longer able to enjoy this life that you're in, that's another red flag.
Yeah.
You're here. Yeah, there's stuff you got to do. It sucks. You got to go through some stuff. Again, it's on the checklist before you come down. But overall, you're still able to enjoy and have that feeling, that peace of watching a sunset or walking through the woods when it's fall. And just being able to take in that beauty of life. Hearing, even though it creeps me out a little bit, hearing kids laugh. That sort of thing. Being with your
kids around you when you hear kids laugh.
Nope. Burn it down. Burn it down, put it out with holy water, and take the Chernobyl treatment. 6-foot concrete wall all around it. But the thing is that there is beauty in life just as much as there is darkness. And if you can only focus on that and not acknowledge the fact that there is a lot of beauty, there is something out there worth living.
Yeah. And it's up to you to do that.
Yeah.
If you're unhappy, it's up to you. I hate to sound mean. It's up to you to fix that. You're the only one that can do that. It's you. It's all you. So
and I joked with you, Bryce, before we came on, like you asking me to look into these things. It's not helping me. You're encouraging my hermit lifestyle at this point because it's like there's a lot of crazy people out there. I don't want to deal with that.
Oh, wait.
But at the same time,
wait till you get big on YouTube.
Oh God. So, I better start saving for that bunker now. Anyways, but the thing is that
I love my viewers. I love 99.9% of the people that I love you guys. You guys are amazing. But there's that 0.01% where I'm like, block. I'm just like, you fucking asshole.
But, even I, know that, hey, you got to go outside. You got to be in nature. There's a lot of just pure beauty out there. There's a lot of light out there. Not so much now where I'm at. It's been cloudy as hell the last week. But when it's nice out, it's nice out.
Yeah.
And when there is someone that is taking that away from you because you have to serve them in order for you to enjoy the beauty in the quote in the hereafter, that's another red flag. You're here for a reason. Don't know what it is, big, small, whatever. Focus on that.
Absolutely. And I want to reiterate, I love my viewers. Steve was a viewer of mine, and now look, we're friends. So I love my viewers. It's just
I wasn't the 1/10%.
No, God, listen. Some of the comments, fuck. Like I get some of these comments, like people are actually offended that I'm doing Gnostic, even though nothing's changed on YouTube. Nothing's changed. I'm still doing my deep dives on YouTube, but I'm also doing Gnostic for exclusive content. And I'm like, you're offended that I have a job. You're offended that I have a job making money so I can continue giving you free shit on YouTube.
I want it all free.
Yeah. How dare you? You should martyr yourself for the cause, and you should be homeless and not be able to afford food just to give us free entertainment. Yes, yeah. You get those people. But those are very, very rare. Most of the people that watch, I love 99.9% of the people who watch this channel because most people are normal. Most people get it. Most people have common sense. But anyway, actually, I'm gonna request that of our viewers, Steve. For you guys, like if you are familiar with this cult, if you've seen the documentary, if you want to pause, go back and watch documentary, come back and comment and bring up some points that you noticed that were like interesting to you because you're in this like truther movement, or I hate calling it truther movement means you know the truth. None of us know the full truth. We're seekers. The seekers, you know, so let me know. Let us know, Steve and I know, because that is why I kind of opened my channel, was to be able to like talk about these things and hear feedback from other people, because multiple heads are better than one. And to get, you know, as Ram Dass said, we're all walking each other home. We are a social memory complex. So let us know, you guys, like what you thought of this situation with the Love Is One cult, and where correlations you see between Amy Carlson and some of these pseudo cult leaders on YouTube and Telegram. So anything you want to close out with, Steve?
Nothing other than thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely. We've got some other fun ones coming up. Before we started filming, I gave them a list of some other fun stuff.
Cults are bad, okay?
Cults are bad, guys.
That'll be, there's my parting words of wisdom. Cults are bad.
Just be yourself. Just be independent and free. You don't need to be part of any group. You don't need no group to be a valuable human being. You are valuable just as you are. So, well, anyway, guys, make sure you go and you subscribe to Steve's channel, because I know he's got some stuff he's going to be putting up soon. And just go ahead and get subscribed. Turn that notification bell on so that you can be privy to Steve's first video when he drops it. So, all right, You guys, we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.